I will change this number 800 to something a little bit smaller. For example, I could try with 750, which is just a number that I think for, but there is no reason to choose this instead of, for example, 790. I can try with such numbers, and perhaps if I knew where the end of the playing field is, I could see which is the best number, which number gives targets that don't exit the right part of the playing field, but also just reach it. This will be easier if I print those chosen target text values. I can even print one more thing. I can even print 30 plus the chosen target x. This is the x of the right part of the target. If the left part is at target text, target x plus 30 is the size of the target, will show me the right end of the target. And of course I can see that 790 is not a really good number for maximum of the interval we choose the left part of the targets. You can see that all those numbers so far are just fine, and even the right part is in the playing field, is a number smaller than 800, but rarely, just sometimes, I will I will wait for it a little bit more because I'm still lucky. But you can see that, for example, in this case, the random chosen number was not 790, which is the maximum. It was only 764. So the right part is at 794. Well, what if it was a little bit higher? And there still isn't such a case. Sometimes the random plays such tricks at you, and you can think that everything is just fine. But I think that you agree that we don't want the left part of the vegetable to be so much to the right that it could reach 790, because then the right part, which is 30 pixels more to the right, will be totally out of the playing field. And this is what happened this time here. The random number chosen for left part of the target was 774, and there were 4 pixels of the right part of the target that didn't fit in the playing field. We need to choose such a number for a maximum of this interval that even when we increased it by 30, it will still fit in 800. So 750 was a good option. If the left part is as at most x 750, then the right part will not go outside of the playing field, but it will be able to reach only 780, and this again is kind of a little bit stupid because we will not be able to use all of the playing field. There will be 20 pixels to the right that will never have a target. If you don't want this, if we want all of the playing field to be used and we can get a vegetable there, and we don't want any part of any vegetable to go outside of the playing field, then the number that we want to write here is the size of the playing field 800 minus the size of one target, which is currently only possible to be 30. So if I save this code and make the targets even faster, I will be able to see them running over the playing field, and I will be able to see that all of those numbers are just fine. Perhaps you don't believe me, and perhaps the speed is too big, and you can test it with slower speed so that you believe me. But instead I plan to start doing something much more interesting than the initial position for our target. Instead I plan to start creating the if that will check whether we hit the target with the mouse. Can you help me? Where should I write such an if? I want you to think which is the place in our code that we want to check if the mouse hits the target. I think that some of you will say, well, we already have one if, why don't we write inside of those of its curly brackets another if like this? What will this mean? Well, this will mean that whenever the target is outside of the playing field and whenever we are ready to recreate it, we should try if it hits the player. Of course, I have written our future if under the code that chooses new random position. This is kind of strange. Perhaps we want to check this for the previous position of the target. So this will now be checked. It will be now checked if the mouse hits the target before we move the target to its new position. I think that both of those options are not the best one, because actually we don't want to check only when the target regenerates. We want to check for hitting the target on each update. So the good place for our future if is here. I will write it in such a way so that our code is formatted correctly. And I already draw you something in Paint. And I told you to check if the mouse Y or the mouse downness is smaller than this bottom part of the target. But the bottom part of the target, do we know where it is? Well, we already know where the most right part of the target is, because we already understood that it's 30 pixels to the right of the beginning of the left part of the target. So, for example, if I want to understand something different, is the mouse too much to the right of the target of its left, enough left? For example, here the mouse is enough to the left, but here it's too much to the right. This is the condition that I will write now. I will check if mouse X is smaller than target X. Where is target X again? Well, this is target X, so I don't want the mouse to be to the left of this. Actually, I want the mouse to be to the left of this part of the playing field. This is not target X, this is target X plus 30. So this if checks if the mouse is enough to the left. So I can print here the mouse is enough to the left. It is possible to hit the target. We can't be sure for now. There are a lot of other things we should check. Not only if the mouse is left enough, but is the mouse down enough or up enough, and also right enough. So we should check not only if we're in this direction enough. Hey, I have an arrow ready for me. Yay, I learned to use paint. So we already checked this, but we also need to check if this is true. If the mouse is enough to the right, more right than the left part of the target. And we also need to check if the mouse is up enough and down enough. Try to think of a way to check all those conditions with our current programming knowledge. Perhaps in order to have a lot of checks, we need a lot of ifs. I will see how my code is working for now. It will be only checking if the mouse is enough to the left. And you can see that this console log is not printing now because the target was too much to the left of the mouse and the mouse wasn't left enough. But if I move the mouse to the left, you can see that each time the target is to the right, and I have my console log now. So we are now checking something. We can test it very carefully if we make the target pretty slow, and you can see that only now I see the console log, and only now I see it, but if I move a little bit to the right, I don't see it. So apparently our check if the mouse is left enough is working, but we need a long way to go before we have a complete checking if the mouse is in the target. Good luck with your task.